Namaste. My name is Clinton Baptiste, clairvoyant, medium, and psychic.
I'm picking up sweetness, extraordinary sweetness deep inside. The place is overflowing with sweetness. Sorry, I've misinterpreted. It's type 2 diabetes.
My name's Alex Lowe. I play Clinton Baptiste. I'm coming to the Isle of Man Gaiety Theatre next week. I'm very much looking forward to seeing everyone.
Spirit? Spirit, be kind.
Alex, we're very much looking forward to having you here, and Clinton, of course. And of course, Clinton's not your only creation. You've had a fantastically varied career. But let's start with Clinton then, because that's who you are bringing to see us. Where did Clinton actually begin? Because we'll know him mainly from sort of Phoenix Nights, but is that where he sort of started?
Yes. I mean, I can't lay claim to inventing Clinton. That's from Peter Kay and Neil Fitzmaurice and Dave Spikey, who wrote Phoenix Nights. And I'd done a bit with Peter Kay before. I was in that Peter Kay thing on Channel 4. And Peter phoned me up one day and said, "Have I got a part for you?" And it was Clinton Baptiste. So I was only I was only in it for one episode, and I'm always slightly embarrassed that 23 years on, I'm still trotting him out. But I've sort of fleshed out the character, so I like to think that a lot of it is now my creation, though I cannot lay claim to inventing him. No.
What about, so in that episode itself then, with some of the lines that you're coming out with, I mean, were they all from the sort of script writers, or did you come up with some of them yourself?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that. There was a little bit of improvising in rehearsals. So I think some of it is, stuff that Clinton said, spontaneously in rehearsals. But no, I mean, the majority of it was scripted. And the famous catchphrase, which I won't say, is entirely Peter's.
And so how did you get involved with Peter in the first place? How did you two know each other?
Well, it was when I was 30, many, many years ago, I decided to go to the Edinburgh Festival and do a show about British wrestling from a book by Simon Garfield, where I was playing Jackie Pallo, Mick McManus, Giant Haystacks, Big Daddy, Kendo Nagasaki. And it was just a kind of great sort of one-man show based on this book. And Peter Kay came to review it for Edinburgh Nights for BBC Two with Bomber Pat Roach, who was in Auf Wiedersehen Pet and was formerly a wrestler. And that's when I first met Peter, and we sort of knocked around a bit at the Edinburgh Festival that year. And then he was, it's before he'd really kind of burst into superstardom. And so that was really the initial thing. And then he got me to do, that Peter Kay thing, and we've sort of been friends since. And happily, we in 2015 we did Phoenix Nights live for Comic Relief at Manchester Arena, and I just said, look, I'd really would like to do Clinton as on the comedy circuit as a comedy character, and he said that's fine, and so that's what I've been doing pretty much ever since.
This is your partner, am I correct?
Yes.
What's your name, love? Jacqueline, isn't it? Jacqueline. Jacqueline, my love! Shawaddy to you, my love. Can I just... You're nothing to do with boxing, are you, John? Spirit professional boxing. Spirit showing me hitting, punching above your weight. Oh, sorry, I said sorry.
And as I mentioned before, obviously you have many other characters as well. But I'm intrigued by Clinton because it's that element of sort of awkward, uncomfortable humour, isn't it? That, I mean, why is it we like that sort of thing?
Well, you know what? I think if you're not American, if you're British, particularly, we like to see the cogs working. We like our heroes to have feet of clay. We like the idea that they're just like us. And we like to see, there's something really funny, to be actorly and pretentious, about a low status character trying to play a high status character. It's kind of endearing. And there's an element of bullying that we enjoy about that. I think, Americans, they like superheroes and people who are untouchable. But there's something really nice about our culture, which is, as I say, wanting to see people be a plucky loser. and failing in a grand way and not and being sort of unaware that they're failing. So I think that's the funny thing that Clinton. I mean, no disrespect to second-hand car salesman, but if Clinton wasn't doing this, he'd be a dodgy second-hand car salesman. It's not. It's just that he's randomly picked, I think, this thing, and imagine he's got these superpowers when he's just a sort of con man like anyone else.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned America as well there, because of course you're absolutely right. You know, the humour is very, very different on both sides of the
Yeah.
Atlantic. But it's interesting that in the past sort of 10 years or so, there has been, you know, the sort of British humour has been seeping in a bit, hasn't it? And it has started to sort of translate over there in certain shows.
I hope so. And I always think people always say to me, why don't you go to America? And, I think if I went somewhere like Vegas, you get a sort of, well, you get European tourists over there. But I think in the main, if I went over there, I think Americans for sort of live stuff, they like straight stand-ups. I don't think they go in for sort of huge, over-the-top characters. But if anyone in America wants me to do a TV series, I'll be very happy to test it out.
Because I mean, as I mentioned, you've done so many different things in your time, haven't you? I mean, and some of the people you've worked with, what have been some of the sort of main highlights for you?
Oh, well, when I started, I used to be with Kenneth Branagh's company, Renaissance Theatre Company, and I did this film Peter's Friends in the early 90s
Which is
and much.
wonderful, I should say.
Oh yeah, happy days. And Much Ado About Nothing that summer. I went out with Kenneth Branagh's company and we filmed in Italy. I shared a villa with Brian Blessed, which is exactly as you'd imagine it to be, loud. And so yeah, when I used to be, and I used to, Ken Branagh very kindly put me in these films in these small but nice parts, and I also was his stand-in. So when he was directing, I'm exactly the same height as him and coloring as him. So I would sort of be playing his part while he was setting up the camera and looking at the shot and all that. So it meant that I was on set for the whole of these two films, and I did a bit in Frankenstein and all sorts of things. So those days when I first started with Kenneth Branagh's company were pretty special. But as is the way with, I mean, any actors will tell you, there never seems to be any logical career progression. Suddenly everything went very quiet after that. I'd done 4 films in my first 4 years of being an actor, and then suddenly nothing happened. So I think I'm sort of proud of doing my characters. Barry from Watford is another character of mine that I did on Steve Wright's show on Radio
Hmm.
2, but off and on for 10 years.
Please, will you
Who
say Minty Biscuits?
Yes, an elderly man who talks. He's very elderly, you see, a Cockney bloke. And he's had a couple of viral things go on, including the Minty Biscuits, the chocolatey ones, no brand names. So he's gone now. Doing my own kind of inventions and my own stuff makes
Gosh,
me proud.
I have to say that is incredible. Like hearing you literally just drop into that. I mean, I thought you would have had to have put some false teeth in or something to get that kind of sound in your mouth. Is
Well,
incredible.
it's based on all my Cockney forebears, so it's something I grew up with. I mean, I sound all nice and middle classy and posh now, but I'm from Southeast London. My lot are originally. So there were loads of people when I was a kid knocking around with these kind of old Southeast London accents who'd moved out during the war, you see, and moved to places like Watford and Harrow and Wembley, them places on the green belt.
God, it must be so much fun. I mean, God, you've got so many personalities living in your head, haven't you, Alex?
Oh yeah, it drives my wife mad. She's sick of it.
Oh, I can imagine. Who's your favourite? Do you have a favourite?
Well, I kind of love Barry because it's based on all my lot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be bringing Barry back at some point. But the Clinton thing, I mean, it's such a delight to do,
Yeah.
and people are loving it, and we're selling out all over the place. So it is really funny at 56 to suddenly be, playing out to all these sold out venues. We've got another show for 2026, and what's really, this is not me. blowing my own horn, but I turn up places and people say, "Oh, I really loved you in this thing and that thing I saw you in." And I think, really, where's everyone been all these years? Suddenly everyone remembers me in things, so that's really gratifying. And I just think it's a really funny show that we've got as
Yeah.
Clint, and it's kind of watertight. It's directed by this guy Brendan O'Hay, who is, Judi Dench just brought out her book, which she was doing the rounds. She was on Graham Norton and such like.
Hmm.
The show is directed by the co-writer of that, Brendan, who's a kind of very well-respected theatre director. So I feel like the show is kind of watertight. It does really well at every show. Touch wood, this is the kiss of death. I'm going to go somewhere tonight and it'll be terrible. But I think people are in for a really great laugh. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's a lot of great old style jokes. I go into the audience, I'll do my readings with people. So I think they're in for a real treat.
Now, I am also a clairvoyant, right? I can see into the future, a week, a month, a year, 50 years. And I've got to tell you, the next 100 years, that big country shirt is not going to come back into fashion. Don't shoot the messenger, I'm only telling you what spirit is telling me, all right? You got to be cruel to be kind.
Have you ever had anyone who sort of reacted in a way you weren't expecting them to when you've come up to them?
Oh, I really have. And it's a long, long story, and I won't use the language, but there was a school in Winchester, and it was a sort of PTA thing, and a guy really took umbrage and chased after me, and the whole evening came to an end quite abruptly. And I have to say, it was a little bit unnecessary, but it was quite frightening that, and I had to hide in this school. And as is the way now, I couldn't get into the classrooms because they had a digital, their
The
sort of
past,
digital
yeah.
box. I mean, and I couldn't hide anyone. He was running after me. He's about 20 years younger than me, and I had to hide behind a sort of filing cabinet.
Oh gosh.
It was terrifying.
He didn't get the Clinton memo then, did he?
He didn't know. He was a French guy, and he was down in Winchester. I mean, there was a lot. There's a sort of huge cultural difference between Clinton, he's the kind of bloke you would see in a working men's club in the northwest of Britain, and this guy had come over from France, and he just didn't get what I was doing, and it was pretty horrific.
Oh gosh. Well, it'll be interesting.
So I have to be careful.
So our crowd
Yeah.
have got to live up to that then next week, obviously.
They'll get it.
They
They'll
will. Hey, we're
understand.
steeped in superstition and folklore and all kinds
you
of
are.
weird stuff. So I think we will
Absolutely.
welcome Clinton with open arms, Alex.
Very good. Well, if there's I mean, I would love to meet up with anyone who's got a ghost story before or after the show for my podcast, as it is such a spooky
Well, you're in the
place.
Gaiety Theatre, which is haunted, so
Well, yeah, I would love to speak to someone about that.
Spirit, what is it which is thou wouldest speak it unto us this evening? Spirit, who is it which is thou wouldest speak it unto us? You've been very happy, am I correct? I've got Diego Maradona here.
to see, as I mentioned, some of the people you've worked with over your time. And you think of, I mean, I can't get over the whole Barry from Watford thing. The fact you didn't you have Catherine Tate playing Barry's wife as well?
She did it once on LBC in London, and then I used the recording for my tour. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was very kind to do that. She was playing her Nan character, who is absolutely what a lot of the ladies sounded like when I was growing up.
It's a great fit, isn't it?
Brilliant, brilliant creation.
Are there any comic characters out there that you wish you had created?
Oh, that's a really good idea. Yeah, good question. I mean, it's kind of old now, but growing up, when I saw Ronnie Barker playing Fletcher in Porridge, it's so hard to imagine, genuinely, this sounds a bit pretentious, that Fletcher doesn't exist as a character, as a person. You know what I mean? It's hard to think that it's the same bloke who was on the Two Ronnies in that cravat. That Fletcher, it didn't actually exist. I think that's such a beautiful three-dimensional character. Um, but I'm trying to think of other things. They're all, I mean, I'm always insanely jealous of people I see on telly doing stuff. I think that is a brilliant character. I tell you who I really, really love is David Earl, who plays a character called Brian Gittins. Now, David Earl is in Afterlife with Ricky Gervais. He was in Eric. He does a podcast with Joe Wilkinson. He is supremely brilliant as a comedy actor. And also my mate Dan Skinner, who does Angelos Epithemiou, who used to be on Shooting Stars. We do a double act together, Angelos and Barry, with a podcast. And he always makes me laugh hugely. So I do love comedy, character comedy actors. I think it takes a very strange thing to be in your 50s still completely adopting this ludicrous character. So yeah, so Dan, David Earl are probably my real favourite.
Maradona! I'm thinking of putting some money on England to win the World Cup. What do you think? Oh, he's laughing. He says, come on, Clinton, use your head.
A real joy speaking with you, thank you. Do say hello to all the spirits in the theatre for us, won't you?
Thanks so much.
Fading now, spirit, fading now.